Greetings and welcome to Monster Legends for another special feeding episode. This time I'm going to be feeding a Thunder Mythic that I acquired recently at a Tales event. We collected tokens, we ended with a progression. And here he is. This is Urcann. And Urcann is a mythic. Urcann is thunder. Urcann is very spiritual. He's from the sea, part of the good legions, and part of a current birthday event. He does have a locked ruin slot, however, so he enters a list of individuals whom I'm going to have to unlock. It's going to be very expensive. Going to wait for a deal. Anyway, for now, let's find him a home. And, no, you're not going there, dude. I know you'd like that, but, you can hang out with those guys. That looks shocking. Alright, so where is our new friend down here? This is somebody whom we're going to rename. This is Urcann. He is a mythic. He is thunder. He has an evolving trait. Let's take a look at that. He begins at rank 0 being immune to freeze. At rank 1, he gains hardening, which means he has an additional 20% chance to resist negative status effects. If you get him all the way to rank 3, then he's going to have a status cast for precision. And I do believe that's for the entire group. Yes, it is. It's for all allies. So that means they have a much better chance at hitting their enemies. Let's take a look at his stats. His strength isn't really too good. No, it's not really good, but that's kind of not what he does. His life is kind of average. It's not the best. It's certainly not the worst. It's kind of right down the middle. So he's not frail, but he's also not tanky. His speed, however, is very good. So he's going to be acting early and often. All right, let's check out his initial skills. He begins with Shine in the Abyss. Deals heavy thunder damage to one enemy, applies daze to one enemy. And of course, that's a 0 cooldown. Kind of interesting. And then we have Charged Wave. Deals moderate special damage to all enemies. Another 0 cooldown there, but that one, yeah, the low damage probably not something very useful. And of course, our special skill, Rumble of the Sea. Applies triple damage and true vision to all allies. Okay, so he is a support individual, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. Sounds like good support to me. Urcann is a very helpful little sea creature. But his eerie figure deceives every monster he offers help to. They all find him too creepy to trust, so they just run away from him. Aw, isn't that terrible? Look at him. You can look at it and see in his sad eyes. They're judging him by his looks. Rudolph knows how you feel. All right, well, you know what? We're going to feed him. He's going to get big and strong, and maybe he's going to convince people that he's good. So let's get some tomatoes rolling here. It's a delicacy of the sea, by the way. And he likes that. Did you see that? Alright, so let's get going with the skills, because that's why we're all here. They start at level 7. Electron Flow. Applies thunder immunity and stamina regeneration to all allies. Alright, so that is a really good or really amazing skill. It depends on the situation. Thunder immunity, if you have a really powerful thunder guy on the other side, can be really great. Alright, let's get here. Sea Jolt. Deals low thunder damage to all enemies, applies shock to all enemies. Alright, so that's not going to do a lot of damage, but the shock is pretty good. And of course, it's got a 1-round cooldown, so I'm probably going to be keeping that one. Kind of useful. Let's continue to all the way to level 20. Electrifying Boost. Applies triple damage to one ally during one turn, applies shock to one ally. Now this is kind of interesting. If you read this, it sounds as if you're putting triple damage onto an ally, and that same ally is going to get shock. That kind of makes sense. As long as it's not an extra turner, it's probably a really good deal there. The thing about it is if you read the text of the creature's introduction, it says, gives triple damage to one ally and takes shock on itself. So I'm very interested to see from usage which it is, because that is going to matter. Alright, let me think about this. I'm going to put this here for now. Like I said, this skill is really useful in certain situations. It's also useful in others too because it does have stamina regeneration. But I think for the moment I'm going to put it right here, this one, because that one is always useful. All right, so let's continue to level 25 for another skill. Lightning Swing. Deals low thunder damage to one enemy, applies shock and daze to one enemy, gives one extra turn to itself. Right, so this is what I'm talking about. If this one here gives him shock, then that makes Lightning Swing more or less useless because you're going to use the triple damage as soon as possible. I think for the moment, I'm going to assume it's putting the shock on your target. So I am going to keep this one. If it is putting the shock on Urcann himself, then essentially this skill is more or less useless because you're not going to be getting the extra turn. All right, so let's continue because we have more skills to get. Like I said, that is actually a really good skill. In certain situations like war, or if you know you're going to run into thunder individuals, that's a really good skill. You'll want to put that in. Remember, it doesn't cost anything to actually do that. I think it's a little bit of gold. Doesn't mean anything. But for now, I don't think I'm taking that. All right, so let's continue to level 35. Golden Flood. Removes all negative status effects from all allies. As a support individual, he kind of needs to take that. Yeah, I do believe he really does need to take that. Because the thing about it is removing negative status effects can be very useful. It's just a really costly version of that. I mean, how many times do we see something like that thrown in with something else? You know, maybe immune to something, or you get life regeneration, or whatever it is. This one just seems really costly. I mean, if you look at the stamina cost for that one, just really kind of expensive. But the thing about it is, you really do need to have it. I think that might be all of his skills. Oh, Dance of Thunder applies precision and damage boost to all allies. Yeah, I'm not taking that one. We're going to have a talk about that, but I'm not taking that one. All right, so what I'm going to do is, I do believe now we've seen everything, so we're just going to march right on to level 60. And this is a guy who keeps bringing up the idea to me is that I would really like to have multiple specs for individuals. You know, build this one or this one. I know they have that for like tournament, but I mean, I'd like to be able to access them whenever I want. It's just kind of like, for this situation, you'd want this. For this situation, you'd want this, you know? Just something that I'd really like to have. And level 60. All right, now we're going to go right in and we're going to talk about stuff. Okay, so let's go over this quickly. Golden Flood. Removing negative status effects is very, very useful, especially considering that the bane of mythics is torture effects. So being able to purge them all is just too useful for a support person not to have. Because if your team gets hit by torture effects, you have to take them off. This one is going to be very dependent on this one right here. Because if this gives him shock, this turns utterly useless. And what I think I would have to do at that point would be to take this one. The reason is because he wouldn't be able to hit individuals who are dodging group attacks. But I'm going to hold on to this one if this does not give him shock. Now, in terms of this one, right? Applies triple damage to one ally and then the shock. Depends on what happens with the shock here, right? It could very well be the story text is just wrong. We've seen that before. If this is giving the shock to the target who's getting the triple damage, then there's no problem. I keep this. But the fact that we have this, and let's face it, we're taking this no matter what, right? Means that I don't really need this one. Yes, precision would be very nice. But look at the damage boost. If you have him on your team, it means that you have a controller, you have a Megaton tank, or some other individual who's going to give protection, say like an Elvira. That means that you have one damage dealer on your team. Because he doesn't really do a lot of damage here, and a controller, really, you're not going to be putting damage on him. Please don't put damage on a controller. So the thing is, this one over here is not as useful. But if you're giving triple damage to one individual, that's going to be your damage dealer. Probably the only damage dealer on your team. So that's the reason I don't really need this one over here, Dance of Thunder. And if this one is not a problem because he doesn't have shock, this is going to reduce the cooldown of this one from 3 to 2 when you use this one up here. So I'm thinking this one is just a far better choice. And this one is just good for messing with the other team. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but putting shock on them is very good. It's a torture effect. It has the side effect, though, of blocking extra turn skills. That's the reason it does make a difference where the shock goes for this skill. So that is something I'm going to be watching when the time for testing comes. That's going to be one of the first things that I do, and I may pop right out to change skills if it gives it to him. It's probably a mistake in the text, but just in case. So over here, this one. If you run into a situation where you know you're going to be running into very hard thunder damage, maybe you're going through a special dungeon that has it, or maybe you're doing war where thunder's in there, and you see like 130 or 140th level Dr. Watts on the other side, yeah, thunder immunity sounds like a really good idea. In the case of Dr. Watts, both his group attacks and a lot of his big attacks are all thunder. So being able to shut down his damage would be very good. So that would be a situation where I'd probably swap this in for this. But I think I'm going to keep Golden Flood and these guys initially. All right, let's take a look at his skills. At 60, yeah, I mean, his strength is kind of middle of the road. You know, he's support. It doesn't really matter very much. He doesn't really have a lot of big hits, does he? Actually, he has one, and we're not taking it. His life is 20,000. It's not terrible. It's okay. It's certainly a lot better than others. A certain tank I could mention. Now, his speed is very good, among the best. He's going to be acting often and early, so that's a good thing for him because he is support. You know, being able to get out in front and like take those bad effects off, because if you get him to rank 1, he's going to be hardened. So he might resist something and then be able to act and take the bad things off his group. That's kind of a good thing that he's fast. So you're probably going to stack up on speed for him, although you don't really need him to be denial speed. All right, so let's take a look at his skills, the skills that I selected. All right, I'm beginning with Golden Flood. Very simple, removes negative status effects from allies, but very important in case some really bad things, like if Curse gets dropped on them, you got to get that off as soon as possible. Next we have Lightning Swing. Deals low thunder damage to one enemy, applies shock and daze to one enemy, gives one extra turn to itself. This is a very good skill for him. It puts not only a torture effect, but it puts daze, gives him an extra turn. That's going to reduce his cooldowns so that he can use other skills more often. Then we have this one, Electrifying Boost. Applies triple damage to one ally during one turn, applies shock to one ally. You're taking this. This is the big one for him. He's going to give triple damage to somebody. The fact that he's fast means he's going to be out in front of all the damage dealers, right? So if you have your control doing something, or you have a Megaton tank and your guys are protected, he puts triple damage on your big damage dealer, and the damage dealer may end the fight. Who knows? It depends on what's going on, right? He's going to do a lot of damage, that's for sure. The question, of course, is the shock. Does the shock go to the damage dealer in this case? If it's an extra turner, that's probably not a good idea. You don't want to do this to Xyla. It's a really bad idea because she'll get one attack and then it'll be over because shock blocks extra turn skills. You'll get the skill, you won't get the extra turn afterwards. Your turn will just end. Very important. If that shock goes to him, which the text seems to indicate, not here, but in the story, then that means I'm going to be taking that skill out because it immediately becomes useless. Because I'm doing this for the extra turn. The shock and the daze are nice, but let's face it, I'm doing that for the extra turn. And then we have this one, Siege-Old. Deals low thunder damage to all enemies, applies shock to all enemies. All right, I'm throwing this one in because, you know, it's a little something extra for him to do. Fairly low on stamina, 1 round cooldown. And having shock on the other enemies is not such a bad thing. It's a torture effect. It's going to do damage, but again, it's going to block extra turn skills. So if you do see a Xyla on the other side, she gets one attack and her turn is over. So that's a very good thing. Now, in terms of this guy, he is support. He's very fast. so you probably want him to go fast. You might just say put all support speed on him because he is a supporter. He's not a controller. If he goes first, he's not going to protect your team from death. He's not going to do something to the other team to stop them from attacking. He's probably going to be somebody you want going in the middle, right? So in this case, you might want to put speed on him, but you could just put all support speed on him so your entire team, and more importantly, your controller, all go first. It really depends on how you're going to play him. Me, I'm kind of thinking support speed might be the way to go. As long as he's going ahead of my damage dealer, which he's going to because he's so fast, I'm okay with that. Because I'm always going to have my controller going first, or I'm going to have some kind of protection going on. So that's what I'm going to do with him in terms of ruins. So this is Urcann. He is a supporter. He's got some really nice support stuff, including, of course, the triple damage, which is basically what you're really going to want for him. You're going to want a nice big damage dealer that he can apply that to, so the damage dealer can do a lot of damage. He's got some other good stuff, too, for protecting the party, removing negative status effects, and he can also put shock on the other side. A little bit of extra turning for himself there, too. He's a good little package, so we're going to have to see how he functions. Anyway, thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate it. And play games because games are fun. See you.